So I was on this shoot a few years back, big budget, for a healthcare brand. And the whole creative brief, it was all about capturing authentic human moments. Very standard stuff, right? We had this incredible actor, a custom-built set that looked just like a real family home, totally convincing. And the client, watching from a monitor, completely captivated. Or on the final take, the most important one, the actor, he's supposed to be reading this letter, and he just nails it. Absolutely perfect. A single tear right on cue rolls down his cheek. It was just magic, real magic. I glance over at the client, and she's actually wiping her eyes. We got it. This is the shot, the one that makes the whole campaign. Director calls, cut, everyone breathes out, that collective sigh of relief. And then the sound mixer. This guy, tons of experience, like 20 years. He slowly takes off his headphones. His face is just pale. And he says, quiet but firm, we have to go again. Turns out there was this faint, rhythmic thump, thump, thump recorded on the track, the lav mic, the little one hidden under the actor's shirt. It was tapping against a button. Just a tiny, stupid 5-set problem that nobody caught. Nobody. And in that instant, all that talk, about emotional truth and brand resonance, it just evaporated. Poof, the magic. Gone. We spent another hour trying to get it back, but
you can't schedule a miracle, can you?
Yeah.
Perfect shot, the one that was supposed to make people feel something. Utterly sabotaged.
Not because the vision was bad or the idea wasn't strong. Nope. It was because a tiny piece of tape was in the wrong spot. And it made me realize something really fundamental about all creative work. That story, honestly, it just perfectly sums up a challenge I've seen so many times in creative stuff, and I bet you have too. Listen in. You pour everything into it. Your heart, your soul, your vision, resources. You're chasing something big, ambitious, something that could really hit home. You're after that magic, right? That moment where it all clicks. But then, bam, some tiny little oversight, a 5-cent problem, like I said, just completely knocks it off the rails. All that potential, all that careful crafting, just ruined by something small, something you feel like you totally should have caught. So the big question for us, for you listening, for anyone doing creative work is this. How do we stop these tiny, easy-to-miss things from completely wrecking our biggest creative visions? How do we build foundations that are actually strong enough so that when we do chase that resonance, that feeling, it actually has a fighting chance to consistently land?
It's a great question, isn't it? Because the gut reaction might be, we just need to be more creative on the spot, find a clever fix right then and there. But you're right, often the real answer lies in being more structured, more intentional, more proactive before you even get to that critical moment. So today, our deep dive is all about exploring some really powerful frameworks and, practical strategies that can lift creative work beyond just getting it done, survival mode. This isn't just about ticking boxes on a project plan. It's really about systematically weaving in that foundational stability, making sure you're aligned strategically and having the right kind of leadership in place. Our goal here is to help you make sure that every creative effort you undertake, whether it's a quick social post or a huge campaign, has the absolute best shot at truly landing, resonating, actually mattering. We're going to dig into how meticulous planning and thinking ahead about risks, they aren't the enemies of creativity. Actually, they're its most powerful allies. They help you make work that not only hits the deadline, but more importantly, makes a real impact.
Yeah, I think you really nailed something crucial there, this idea that creative problems aren't always about creativity itself. It's so easy to blame a failed project on, like a bad creative idea, or we just weren't inspired. But I've seen it so often, a lot of campaigns that just fall flat, or designs that go through round after round after round of revisions. They actually come from much deeper, more basic issues, like you said, not enough time, or nobody's really clear on what we're trying to achieve, or maybe there's just no trust in the process itself. And when those basic things are shaky, it honestly doesn't matter how brilliant your initial spark was, the whole thing often just crumbles.
It's a perfect setup because it forces us to ask, okay, how do you even figure out where a project is really struggling? Is it strategy, logistics, something else? To help sort this out, we can actually borrow a really useful idea from psychology. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We can adapt that for creative projects. Let's call it the hierarchy of creative needs. Picture a pyramid. The core idea is simple. You just can't effectively chase those high-level creative dreams until the bottom levels are solid. Trying to skip levels, it's like trying to put the roof on a house before you've even poured the concrete foundation. It won't work. So right at the very bottom of this pyramid, level 1, we've got survival. This is the absolute base, the just get it done zone. The main goal is simply to exist. Think about a brand new startup, right? They desperately need some decent headshots for their pitch deck, like yesterday. Or maybe a company needs a silent video loop for a trade show booth, just something that says, "Hi, we're here." Or maybe it's just a quick recap video proving an event happened, but there's no aim for, deep emotional connection. The work here is really just about hitting basic deadlines, delivering what was asked for, strategies. Simple. Clear lists, turn it around fast, no ego involved, just get it out the door. The big mistake here is expecting profound emotional impact from something at this level. It's totally unrealistic, like expecting, a gas station sandwich to taste like a 5-star meal. It serves a purpose, but that's it. Okay, move up one level to level 2, stability. Here, the focus shifts. It's not just about existing anymore, it's about making sure the process runs smoothly. The creative work itself might still be pretty tactical, but the system, the structure holding it all together, that becomes absolutely critical. This is where you're efficiently juggling stakeholder feedback from 10 different departments, or managing super tight interview schedules for executive videos, or maybe you're delivering hundreds of photos to teams scattered across different continents, making sure everyone gets what they need when they need it. At this stage, what the team really needs is predictability. Efficiency. So the effective strategies are all about meticulous planning, really thinking ahead, and having the guts to set clear boundaries. Don't overpromise. If you try to wing it here or promise the moon, it just leads to chaos, total disappointment. You're essentially building the train tracks so the creative train can actually run later. Then we get to level 3, alignment. Okay, now creativity starts doing more. It begins to serve a bigger strategic purpose. The work isn't just getting done or running smoothly. Now it's actively trying to support the overall strategy. This is where your visuals, your messaging, they start pulling together in the same direction, working as a team. So, a customer testimonial video. It doesn't just show a happy customer, it deliberately reinforces your company's mission, your core values. Or that brand image library. It's not just random nice photos, it actually reflects your real target audience personas, avoiding those cheesy, generic stock photo vibes. This is where creative output really starts connecting to the bigger business goals. Strategies. Prioritize listening before you create anything. And design visuals that actually serve the whole system, not just look pretty in isolation. The trap here is just doing what worked last time without asking, okay, but what do we actually need now? That inertia kills true strategic integration. Next up, level 4, resonance. This is where it gets really interesting. Creativity moves beyond just sending a message. It becomes an experience. This is where people genuinely feel something. We're talking about that social media video that feels like a real, unscripted moment, not some overly polished corporate piece. Or maybe it's a healthcare photo campaign where the lack of smiles is the point, conveying something deeper about vulnerability or strength. Or it's a video that actually slows down, sits with the subject, and trusts the audience to stay engaged, allowing for a real emotional connection. Tone, pacing, nuance, real empathy in the storytelling. That's what matters here. Strategies. Deep trust within the team is crucial. Embracing subtlety. Strong story structure. And knowing when to hold back, that's a superpower. Restraint. The common mistake. Over-polishing. Trying to refine it so much you polish the soul right out of the piece, leaving it feeling artificial, maybe even manipulative. And then, right at the top, the peak of the pyramid. Level 5. Creative actualization. This is where the work truly aims to matter, both to the audience and to the team that created it. These are the projects that genuinely shift perceptions, set a new benchmark in an industry, and really stick in people's minds long after they've seen it. Think about those brand campaigns that don't just launch a product, but redefine the entire company through a whole body of work, not just one clever tagline. Or maybe it's those long-form nonprofit stories that hit you hard precisely because they avoid statistics and infographics, relying instead on raw human truth. These pieces don't just talk about values, they embody them. They become part of the conversation. Strategies here involve giving creatives real space to stretch, developing strategy with guts, being willing to take bold creative risks, and empowering creatives who are trusted to lead the vision forward. The absolute pitfall, playing it safe, shying away from those risks. That guarantees you'll never reach this truly transformative level. It's where art meets purpose.
It's wild how often teams try to jump straight to resonance or actualization, right? Without even thinking about those foundational levels. I remember hearing about this junior marketing coordinator in London. Let's call her Chloe. Her agency struggle was like a textbook example of this. They just landed this huge client, this old school artisanal soap brand, trying desperately to seem cool to, millennials. The client was totally obsessed with going viral, wanted a cultural moment, big pressure. So the agency director, probably feeling that heat, immediately approved this massive high-budget campaign. The centerpiece, an abstract short film about, wait for it, the purity of self-expression. They hired some trendy director, threw a ton of money at production, all focused on these supposedly groundbreaking visuals and a deep emotional message. But Chloe, she was closer to the ground, right? She saw the problem. Nobody had asked the basic questions, like really basic. There was no clear strategy defined. The target persona was just this vague millennials. No data at all on what this audience actually cared about, especially regarding soap. So the project was basically operating in survival mode, just trying to make a demanding client happy, but they were acting like they were aiming for resonance. Total disconnect. And when the film launched, oh, it was a disaster. People online just mocked it mercilessly, called it pretentious, totally out of touch. Comments everywhere were like, what does this even have to do with soap? It didn't just fail. It actively hurt the brand, made them look ridiculous and irrelevant. Chloe's takeaway was simple. They tried to build the roof of a house before laying the foundation. They got so caught up in the sexy idea of high-level meaning, they skipped all the essential, maybe boring work of strategy and stability first. It's such a painful lesson, but wow, does it stick. True impact needs that solid base.
Chloe's story is it's perfect. It highlights the core problems so clearly. So many teams, especially when things are moving fast, they aim for the stars, resonance, actualization when fundamentally they're still scrambling just to survive. And that's why you see these premium projects, sometimes with huge budgets, just fall completely flat. It's usually not because they didn't spend enough money. No, it's because they were fundamentally understructured. That distinction is critical. Real emotional impact. It's never just a happy accident. Never. It's the direct result of having an aligned strategy, having real creative clarity, and building enough trust within the team to actually push boundaries when it matters. Without that underlying structure, that solid foundation, you're basically just, throwing expensive paint at a wall and hoping it looks like art instead of carefully preparing the canvas first.
Exactly. And that leads right into some of the most common, almost everyday content production mistakes that actively sabotage those crucial foundations of stability and alignment. Mistakes that guarantee you'll never climb that pyramid. First up, skipping audience research. Seriously, creating content without really knowing who you're talking to. Not just their age and location, but what they actually like, what problems they have, how they behave online, their buyer personas. It's like throwing darts in the dark. It guarantees your message will just whiff completely. No engagement, no connection, just a huge waste of everyone's time and talent. Think about it. If you're targeting small business owners, your content has to speak their language. Solutions for scaling, cost-effective marketing tips, time-saving tools, and you absolutely have to know where they hang out online. Is it short articles, LinkedIn, maybe deep dive videos on YouTube? Without that deep dive, your content is just noise in an already incredibly noisy world. And then there's the classic, neglecting a clear strategy and goals. This is like setting sail without a map or a destination.
It just leads to scattered efforts, confusing messages, and an audience that has no idea what you stand for. You absolutely have to develop a real content strategy with specific, measurable goals. What are you trying to achieve? Leads, brand awareness, keeping existing customers happy. You need to define your target platforms and, crucially, set up key performance indicators, KPIs, so you can actually track if any of it is working. Every single piece of content, whether it's a tiny tweet or a massive white paper, needs to ladder up to these bigger goals. And please, always include a clear call to action, a CTA, that ties back to those goals. Don't just publish something vague like improving your marketing. Aim for something specific and valuable, like 5 proven marketing strategies to double your leads. See the difference. One has purpose, the other's just content for content's sake. And finally, a trap that's so easy to fall into, overlooking quality for quantity. In this mad dash to just pump out more content faster, so many teams forget the most basic rule. Value matters more than volume. Always. Trust me on this. It is so much better to produce one truly outstanding, carefully crafted blog post or video each week than to churn out 5 mediocre, forgettable pieces that nobody actually engages with or remembers. Quality checks are non-negotiable here. That means perfect grammar and spelling. Yeah, even small typos erode trust. It means using visuals, thoughtfully clear charts, maybe some subtle animation to boost engagement. And it always means getting a fresh pair of eyes, maybe a professional editor to look it over before it goes out. These little things, they make your content actually stand out, provide real value, and stop it from just becoming more digital landfill.
Right. So tackling these foundational mistakes, these basics, it isn't about putting creativity in a box or adding red tape. It's actually the exact opposite. It's about giving your brilliant ideas the solid, clear, stable platform they absolutely need to not just exist, but to actually hit those higher levels of impact and meaning. When you get these fundamentals right, when you focus on the structure, your creative work finally has the support it needs to truly take flight.
Which brings us perfectly to this philosophy I just love, something I picked up from the investor Charlie Munger. Don't try to be smart, just be less stupid. You know, in creative fields, we get so caught up in celebrating the genius, right? That sudden flash of brilliance, the perfect instinct that comes out of nowhere. It sounds great. But like my story earlier, that perfect emotional scene, totally ruined by a mic hitting a button, sometimes the biggest wins, the things that actually save a project from going completely off the rails, come from just avoiding the obvious screw-ups. It's about systematically stopping the dumb mistakes before they happen, as Munger might say, maybe a bit more bluntly.
It's such a powerful idea and surprisingly freeing, actually. And it applies so directly to how we manage creative production, the whole workflow. This be less stupid approach basically means shifting your focus. Instead of chasing those fleeting moments of genius or just hoping your gut instinct saves the day, you focus on meticulous planning, proactive risk mitigation, thinking ahead. There's this myth, isn't there, that creativity needs chaos. This romantic idea that amazing work just springs out of disorder and last-minute panic. But the truth. The best creative environments, the ones consistently delivering amazing work, they're actually built on structure. They have guardrails. They build in buffers, margins for error. And it's not because the people aren't talented. It's precisely because the work is important, because it deserves not to be sabotaged by logistical problems or issues that, frankly, could have been foreseen and prevented. Think about a professional kitchen, right? The concept of mise en place, everything in its place. A great chef doesn't wait until the dinner rush is insane to start chopping onions, frantically looking for a sharp knife while the pan's smoking. They don't scramble for the right tool after the delicate fish is already starting to burn. No way. They prep everything beforehand. They anticipate every single step, because that preparation, it isn't the enemy of creativity. It's the absolute foundation that lets creativity actually happen when the pressure is on. Good prep creates the space for real improvisation, for handling the unexpected gracefully instead of just panicking. That's the core. The whole genius myth is a trap. The most important parts of a shoot or any project, they happen quietly behind the scenes. It's the hundreds of small, careful, diligent decisions that make the big moments even possible. They don't make the cool behind-the-scenes video because, honestly, they're kind of boring, but they are everything.
That mise en place analogy is perfect, just perfect. And let's make it real with a story, a scenario I've seen variations of play out so many times in video production. Picture this. Small crew, filming a documentary. They're in the remote Italian countryside, tracking down this famously reclusive chef. They've somehow managed to get exactly one day to film the absolute centerpiece of their movie. The chef making his signature dish, something he's never, ever let anyone film before. High stakes. The director. Young, visionary type. All about the vibe, chasing inspiration, you know the type. But the cinematographer, let's call her Maria, she's different, quiet, a total veteran. So hours before they're due to start, Maria's off in a corner, methodically laying out every single piece of her gear, like everything. She tests all three of her backup batteries. She labels every single memory card with a Sharpie. She meticulously cleans every lens, even the ones she probably won't use. The director sees this, rolls his eyes, super impatient, muttering about how old school she is, telling her to hurry up so they can find the light or whatever. Maria just nods, keeps doing her thing, calmly. Finally, they start rolling, and it's magic. The light is perfect, streaming into this rustic kitchen. The chef, he's in a rare mood, telling stories while he cooks. Gold. Then disaster. A brand new, super expensive memory card, one the director insisted they buy because it was faster, suddenly corrupts. Big red error message. Boom. 40 minutes of footage. Irreplaceable stuff. The heart of the film. Gone. Panic erupts. The director's practically in tears, cursing. But Maria. Before the director even finishes his sentence, she's already swapped in one of her meticulously prepped, clearly labeled backup cards. She's rolling again. Total time lost. Less than a minute. When I first heard that story, it just clicked. Maria's real value wasn't some sudden flash of genius on set. It was her deliberate, almost stubborn effort to simply not be stupid. She understood that reliability, that preparedness. That's the absolute bedrock. That's the stage on which creativity actually gets to perform. The director was chasing that fleeting moment, hoping for inspiration. Maria was making sure that if the moment came, they could actually capture it, keep it, and bring it home. In creative work, especially visual stuff, your workflow isn't just about hoping things go well. It's about meticulously planning to stop the worst from happening. Her discipline saved the art.
You've nailed it. Maria's actions are the perfect embodiment of this philosophy. Her value wasn't some mystical genius, but her deliberate, consistent effort to not be stupid. Her rock-solid reliability. That was the critical platform. That's what allowed the director's creative vision to even exist. Like you said, the director was chasing brilliance, hoping for magic. But Maria, through pure foresight and rigorous prep, was ensuring that if magic happened, it could actually be captured. And just as importantly, brought home safely. It really highlights that fundamental truth. Your workflow isn't about crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. It's about systematically planning to prevent the worst.
Okay, so if we want to take Maria's approach and turn it into practical, actionable rules for our own work, field rules that stick, what does that look like? These are the rules born from experience, usually painful experience, right? They're all about that be less stupid idea, focused on proactive risk mitigation. Start simple, but it gets people all the time. Never trust a full battery. I'm serious. Doesn't matter if the indicator says 100%, if that battery's been sitting in your bag for a week or you haven't touched it since the last gig, just assume it's going to die at the worst possible moment. Right when everyone's watching, you've got the perfect shot lined up. Dead. I've learned this the hard way too many times. Charge all the batteries. Every time. It takes a minute, saves hours of pain. Next one. Crucial for anyone dealing with files later. Make your file organization idiot-proof. You might think you remember what BBP0000324.AirW is, or that Untitled Project 24mix2 final.mp4 is definitely the one. You won't. Trust me. Not 6 months later when you're desperately digging through old drives under deadline. A clean, consistent file structure is a lifesaver in post. It's insurance. Label everything like your future self is exhausted, stressed, and needs to find that one specific clip right now, making it impossible to mess up. Okay, this one's about collaboration. Make it easier for everyone to say yes. This applies to everyone involved, clients, crew, the people you're filming, everyone. What does that mean? Detailed call sheets, no ambiguity. Pre-visualizing your setup so you can work fast. Having backup plans for bad weather that still get you something usable. And maybe most importantly, learning to read the room. Knowing when your subject is nervous, when the crew is hitting a wall, when stakeholders are zoning out. Good prep just smooths everything out, makes collaboration easier. This one, non-negotiable for me. Always have a three-legged stool, meaning backups. At least 3 copies on at least 2 different physical types of media or locations. For archival safety. Even if it's just a quick headshot session or just a few drone shots for social media. Data loss is real. It's devastating. It can cost you clients, your reputation. Don't risk it. Protect your work like gold. Sounds basic, but you'd be shocked. Never assume someone else packed it. If it's absolutely critical for the shoot, the specific power strip, a certain clamp, the tripod plate that fits your camera, headphones, extra cards, gaffer tape if you didn't physically touch it and put it in the bag, don't assume it's there. Double check, triple check. That sinking feeling on set when you realize a vital piece is missing. Horrible. Your peace of mind, the whole project's flow, is worth those extra few seconds of checking. And finally, a rule for when you're actually shooting. Get the safety shot before you get fancy. It's so tempting to chase that super clever, unique, artistic angle first, and then totally forget to get the clean, simple, usable version. But the reality check. 9 times out of 10, editors and clients want options. Get that versatile, clean coverage first, the shot you know will work. Because the freedom to get weird, to experiment, that only comes after you've banked the essential shot. Get the basics, then get creative.
You're absolutely right. These are all fundamentally boring things. Checking batteries, labeling files, there's zero glamour in it. But as you've shown so well, these boring things are precisely what protect the brilliant things from falling apart. Reliability truly does beat brilliance in creative work. Because, as I always like to say, hope is not a part of my workflow. It's about systematically closing the doors on failure so that magic actually has a chance to happen without being interrupted by something dumb.
Hope is not a part of my workflow. I love that. And it leads us perfectly into another crucial piece of the puzzle. The people involved. The team. We've talked about the different levels of creative need, the huge power of just preventing basic mistakes. But beyond solid foundations and avoiding screw-ups, how can leaders actually create an environment where teams don't just survive but consistently hit those higher levels? Creative actualization, how do you enable that kind of excellence?
That's such a critical question. And I heard a story recently from a friend, a senior designer at a big Silicon Valley tech company, that really speaks to the power of truly transformative creative leadership. For about 2 years, his team worked under this manager who, was technically okay, but kept them constantly stuck in project survival mode, like permanently. Every single project felt like a fire drill. The goals would change literally week to week, depending on which executive complained the loudest that day. And this manager, total control freak, had to approve every tiny design decision, created insane bottlenecks. My friend said they felt like assembly line workers, just churning out screens. No real ownership, no understanding of the why. Their only goal was basically to get through the week without being yelled at. The work got done, sure, but it was just lifeless. functional, but zero inspiration. Then that manager left and a new lead came in, let's call her Anya, and her approach. Totally different, radical, even, first day. She didn't talk about deadlines, deliverables, none of that. Instead, she spent a whole week facilitating workshops with the team. Together, they created a creative charter. Just a one-page document outlining their core principles, their shared definition of quality, their strategic mission for the year, clear as day. And she told them straight up, this is our North Star. I trust you guys to make the daily calls to get us there. My job, my only job, protect this vision, clear the obstacles out of your way. He said the change was immediate, like night and day, profound. With that clarity, that empowerment, the team just transformed. They started actually collaborating, taking smart risks, pushing their own ideas forward with real confidence. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were building something they believed in. And within 6 months, they launched this innovative feature that was so good, so impactful, it actually became a new standard for the whole industry. Thinking about it, the first manager saw leadership as just managing tasks, right? But Anya understood. True creative leadership is about cultivating the environment. By providing that trust, that strategic clarity, she basically gave them a ladder out of the basement of survival, pointed them towards creative actualization. She showed that a leader's job isn't just keeping the boat afloat, but setting a clear course and trusting the crew to sail it well.
Wow, Anya's approach really did transform things. It highlights something so critical today, right? In this world where tech changes constantly, consumer habits shift overnight. Innovation isn't just a nice bonus anymore. It's absolutely vital for any company that wants to stick around. And like you said, employee creativity, that's the engine driving it. It's not about finding one lone genius hiding in a corner. It's about creating an entire ecosystem where everyone feels safe, motivated, and empowered to bring their best creative thinking to the table every day.
Precisely. And one of the key ingredients, often really underestimated in unlocking that creativity across a whole team, is something called leadership empathy. Now, empathy here isn't just, feeling sorry for someone. It's more complex. It involves understanding where someone else is coming from. That's cognitive empathy. Kind of sharing their feelings, emotional empathy, and then responding in a helpful way, behavioral empathy. For employees, this is huge. It builds trust. It builds understanding. When you feel your leader actually gets you, it helps you figure out who you can rely on, how best to interact. And for the leaders, it gives them a much better read on their team's needs, allowing them to respond quickly and supportively. This fosters a really positive work atmosphere, improves performance, and gives people a real sense of security and emotional backing. And the downstream effects: higher job satisfaction, way more motivation, better efficiency, all leading to employees being genuinely willing to invest more of their own energy and passion into doing creative work. Empathetic leaders are really good at building innovative teams because they create that supportive environment. An environment where people feel safe enough to actually voice new ideas, to brainstorm freely, even to challenge the status quo without fearing they'll get shot down. This actively encourages knowledge sharing, collaborative learning, all the stuff that really sparks creative potential across the entire team. But it's important to add a little nuance here. Empathy, applied blindly or at the wrong moment, it can actually backfire sometimes. For employees, there's a risk, right? That some might feel like, oh, my peers are just playing the victim card to get sympathy or avoid work. It could create a weird dynamic where people feel like showing weakness is the way to get ahead, thinking, why should I bust my gut? This can lead to emotional fatigue for those feeling manipulated or drained, and for leaders themselves. Untimely empathy can cause problems. It can cloud their judgment, maybe lead to playing favorites, and ultimately make it harder to make wise, objective decisions for the whole team or the company's good. Professor Paul Bloom, the psychologist, he talks about this, how empathy can distort a leader's judgment. So it's really important for leaders to learn how to sometimes step back a bit from their raw empathetic feelings, to maintain objectivity when making big calls. It's about blending wisdom with warmth, not just being nice.
That nuance is so important. It's not just about having empathy, but knowing how and when to use it wisely. So what are the actual characteristics of empathetic leaders who really help teams reach those higher creative levels instead of just keeping things ticking over? Well, one key thing seems to be the ability to maintain rationality in work. Leaders who are effectively empathetic, they tend to be emotionally stable, rational. They can keep their cool even when things are hitting the fan. This lets them face danger and remain calm, make clearer, more logical decisions under pressure, that kind of emotional steadiness. It's absolutely vital for keeping the whole operation stable, especially when creative projects inevitably hit rough patches. Another big one is their knack for motivating the subjective initiative of employees. These leaders build real connection, real affinity within their teams. It makes it easier to start common topics, fosters open dialogue. When people are struggling, they don't just offer sympathy, they offer genuine encouragement, real comfort and courage. They also lead by example, setting a high bar that inspires others. Employees start seeing their leaders as role models, motivating themselves to improve. It ties right into that self-determination theory meeting needs for relevance, autonomy, feeling capable. Thirdly, they're masters at building harmonious leadership-employee relationships. They really act like a lubricant in the team machinery. They handle conflicts well, foster good relationships, and focus the team's energy on shared goals. Their open communication style kind of reduces class relationships, makes things feel less hierarchical, more fair, more sincere. And that directly helps all the organizational work flow more smoothly because there's less friction, more trust. And finally, they really play a leading role and improve work efficiency. A leader's empathy, used right, it's like that lubricant between gears, helping everything mesh better, increasing the overall speed and effectiveness. They can step into chaotic situations, stabilize things, soothe the emotions of members, and make everyone genuinely believe, okay, we can handle this. This holistic approach really empowers the whole team to perform at their best.
Yeah, and this whole discussion about empathetic leadership fits really nicely with a concept called Leadership Member Exchange Theory, or LMX. Basically, LMX looks at the quality of the relationship between leaders and members. The idea is that leaders don't have the exact same relationship with everyone on their team. They develop unique exchanges over time. In what we call high LMX relationships, there's a lot of trust, mutual respect, back and forth influence. Leaders in these relationships tend to provide things their team members really value, like interesting assignments, genuine emotional support, fair rewards, and in return, employees in these high LMX relationships, they're generally happy to devote themselves to their tasks with more energy, and they show stronger loyalty to the leader and the company. Now, here's the crucial link. When you have empathetic leadership happening within these high-quality LMX relationships, it creates this incredibly safe, warm working atmosphere, especially for people trying to innovate. It boosts their positive emotions, lowers their fear of taking risks, and directly stimulates their creativity. It seriously enhances job satisfaction, which then fuels deeper levels of innovative outcomes. Plus, it fosters that open communication needed for brainstorming and collaborative problem-solving, the lifeblood of creative work.
So if you're a leader listening and thinking, okay, I want to cultivate more of this, the practical methods seem pretty straightforward, but maybe not always easy. It's about actively working on controlling one's own emotions, being that steady hand on the tiller. It's about engaging in accurate, transparent communication to break down any perceived barriers and build real understanding. And critically, it's about maintaining a consistently positive mindset, projecting resilience and optimism, especially when things get tough. It's about being the stable core for your team, not just the ideas person. #5E on building a robust creative workflow. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground. We've looked at the layers of creative need, knowing where you actually are on that pyramid. We've talked about the huge power of just preventing dumb mistakes, that be less stupid idea. And we just dug into how empathetic leadership can really unlock a team's potential. The big question now is, how do we pull all of this together? How do we make it systematic, repeatable? How do marketing agencies, how do in-house creative teams actually build a project management framework that's rock solid and delivers consistently?
That brings us right to defining what we mean by a creative workflow. Simply put, it's the series of processes a creative team follows to generate ideas, approve new designs, and execute campaigns and projects. Now, it's really important to separate this from the creative process itself. Think of it like this. If the creative process is the art, the brainstorming, the inspiration, the aha moments, then the creative workflow is definitely the science. It provides the essential structure and accountability. It's the map that guides a project from that first spark of an idea all the way through to the final sign-off. It's the operational spine, the consistent steps that actually allow the art to happen reliably again and again.
And having that structured process, it's not just nice, it's absolutely essential today because it directly tackles so many of the headaches that drive creative teams crazy. Think about it. Endless rounds of revisions eating up time, creating tons of unnecessary file versions causing confusion, those awful missed deadlines that hurt client trust and team morale. Ugh. A good workflow clarifies exactly who does what, preventing confusion and making your team look way more reliable and efficient. It helps you prioritize projects and revisions properly. It streamlines the whole operation, making sure creative work gets delivered after proper review and collaboration. And really importantly, it ensures everything is compliant brand guidelines, legal stuff with a clear trail to prove it. And this isn't just about feeling better. The impact is real, measurable. We're We're talking significant productivity boost. Marketing teams putting structured processes in place, they've seen gains of up to 28%, according to McKinsey. PMI studies suggest even 30% in some cases. And get this, just automating parts of the workflow. That alone can cut production time by an average of 45%. That's huge. These aren't small improvements. They're fundamental changes that boost your capacity and quality.
Absolutely huge. And to build these effective workflows, it helps to break down the key phases of a creative production process because each needs its own focus. First, you've got pre-production. This is your setup phase. All the groundwork happens here. Activities, researching competitors, really digging into the target audience, setting clear project goals, defining the core message, nailing the tone, choosing your media formats, distribution channels, brainstorming, concepting, maybe prototyping, storyboarding. The whole point here is defining what success looks like before you start making anything. Solidify that creative brief. Next comes production. This is where the ideas actually get made. Execution time. What's key here? Crystal clear task allocation. Who owns what exactly? Having the right tools, ready software, gear, materials. Building in feedback loops throughout this phase, not just waiting till the end. Agile adjustments, and constantly ensuring brand and regulatory compliance as you create. This is where concepts become real assets. And finally, post-production. This isn't just hitting publish. It covers all those critical final stages and then the ongoing optimization activity. Getting those final approvals, internal stakeholders, external clients, incorporating feedback thoughtfully for further optimization after launch. Crucially, monitoring performance and impact. Are you hitting your goals? Looking at conversions, engagement, brand recall, and something often skipped but so important. Reviewing the workflow itself after the project. What worked, what didn't, how can we do better next time? That feedback loop is essential for getting better over time.
Okay, so we get the why and the what. How do we actually build this thing? Let's get practical. Building a high-performing creative workflow. Instead of just a long list, maybe we can group the key ideas. The first big bucket has to be about absolute clarity and rock-solid foundations. This is where you stop problems before they start. It covers that whole initial setup. Clarifying project scope. This is step one, non-negotiable. Really talking through exactly what stakeholders want and why. Nailing the goals, budget, timeline, writing it all down, getting that sign-off. These are the building blocks for everything else. Deadlines, versions, who's involved. Skip this, you're just guessing. Using a comprehensive creative brief. Think of this as your project's constitution. A great brief is the backbone. It needs the summary, timeline, goals, budget, team deliverables, objectives, audience details, key messages, competitors, tech specs, success metrics. Everything. A standard template here saves so much time and ensures everyone's on the same page. Studies show, like 89% of marketers believe good briefs lead to better work. It's your GPS, assigning key roles and responsibilities. Seems obvious, but often gets fuzzy. Clearly define who's who. Not just the managers and clients, but within the creative team, lead designer, copywriter, animator, videographer. This creates clear accountability, helps track tasks, hit deadlines, and crucially, stops things falling through the cracks or being done twice. Everyone knows their lane.
Totally agree. Those initial steps set the whole tone. Without that clarity up front, you're just constantly fighting fires later. Okay, so building on that, the next big principle is all about structuring and documenting for seamless execution. This is where the plan takes real shape. So once you have clarity, you need to map out your creative workflow. Literally visualize it. Look at how you do things now. Figure out what works, what's broken, and redesign it. Map out, step by step, who does what task and when. This exercise is amazing for spotting bottlenecks before they bite you and for cutting out repetitive steps. Use data from past projects if you can. Draw it out, use software, whatever works, just get it visual. It moves planning from guesswork to intentional design. Then, critically, document the creative workflow. Mapping isn't enough. Write it down. Make it easy for everyone to find and understand. This is especially vital for the review and feedback stages. Document exactly who reviews what at which stage. And super important, limit the number of reviewers per round. And make sure feedback actually gets action each time. Name and number every round of feedback, every revision. This creates accountability, tracks changes. And distinguish. Early feedback on strategy is different from late feedback on typos. If a client questions the whole concept at the final sign-off, your workflow failed way earlier. And one more thing here. Often missed. Get team sign-off on the creative workflow process itself. This shouldn't just be handed down from on high. Involve the whole team in creating and refining it. The workflow needs to make sense for them and help them work, not get in their way. Stress that it's a living document, adjustable. And leverage tools. Collaboration software can automate workflows, moving assets along based on triggers. That ensures consistency, smooth handoffs, less manual chasing.
That's so key, making it a living system involving the team. Okay, so you've built the system. What's next? It has to be about continuous improvement and smart automation. Because a workflow isn't something you set up once and forget, right? First, review creative workflow metrics. After big projects, or just regularly, step back and assess what worked, what drove us crazy. Look at actual data. How long did approvals really take? How many versions did that social graphic go through? Where are the delays? What was the total time from start to finish? Analyzing this helps you spot real bottlenecks. Maybe approvals always get stuck with legal, or one team member is constantly swamped. Find the patterns. Building on that, hold regular check-in meetings. Since things change, regular chats are vital. Get feedback, spot new issues, include everyone, internal team, clients, stakeholders, freelancers, get their perspectives. You might discover, for instance, that splitting workflows for different types of content like design versus video could make everyone way more efficient. And then fine-tune your creative workflows constantly. Like we said, they're not static. Make small incremental improvements all the time. Use your metrics and benchmarks like average number of versions to find opportunities. Look at why things get stuck. Is feedback unclear? Is it not timely? And importantly, notice what is working well across the team and double down on those practices. Replicate success. And finally, the big one for efficiency. Automate your workflow. Technology is your friend here. Find those hotspots that can be simplified or streamlined with software. For example, automate project kickoff. Use intake forms, maybe even just a Google form, to standardize new project requests. Make key fields mandatory so creatives get all the info they need up front instead of chasing emails. Automate project monitoring and progress. Use collaborative proofing tools. Host files centrally. Let people comment right on the asset in real time. Automate task tracking. This kills those awful, slow, confusing email feedback chains. Automate the completion phase. Use online proofing software that can automatically notify stakeholders when it's their turn to review and request final approval. This smooths out that often painful sign-off stage, ensures everyone sees the right version, no more which final is final. Chaos.
Exactly. And when you have all these phases and steps working together, they function because of several key underlying components. Think of them as the gears. Robust task management systems, clearly defined review and approval processes. Getting these right can cut revision cycles by like 42%, which is massive. You need good project monitoring tools, smart resource allocation systems, and of course, seamless communication channels. When these components are humming along together, the whole workflow machine runs smoothly.
And what's really cool is how these structured workflow steps directly fix those common content mistakes we talked about earlier. It's like the antidote. For instance, failing to plan for visuals. Solved. Visuals are integrated right from the start, in the brief. You're thinking about video, infographics, custom illustrations from day one, and yeah, color adjusting stock photos so they actually look like your brand. Authenticity matters. That problem of ignoring SEO best practices. Fixed. Optimization is built into the content creation process, naturally weaving in keywords, writing good titles and headings, adding meta descriptions, alt text for images, always focusing on solving user intent. It becomes automatic, not an afterthought. Lack of consistency in branding, gone. Because you have and adhere to a comprehensive brand style guide. Voice, tone, colors, fonts, logos, video bumpers, templates, everything covered. Every piece of content feels instantly recognizable. Builds trust. Failing to repurpose content. Addressed. You plan for repurposing from the start. That long blog post. It's also planned as a video script, maybe an infographic, definitely some social snippets. Maximize the value of your effort. Reach more people. And that very modern challenge, overdependence on AI. Managed. AI is recognized as an amazing tool for efficiency image gen, writing help, editing assistance, but the workflow ensures it requires smart, conscious use and human reviews. You need that human oversight for brand consistency, accuracy, and to catch silly errors, like forgetting to delete the AI's helpful introductory paragraph. AI is a powerful assistant, not the boss.
And if you're looking for specific tools to help make all this happen, there are some really solid creative workflow management tools out there. Abyssal gets a lot of praise for automating creative workflows, especially for marketing teams. Offers flexible approval controls, dashboards, role management, good review features. Wrike is another comprehensive option, good for automation, custom request forms, built-in proofing. Asana is popular for its visual approach, customizable templates, good for seeing how different projects connect. Trello is great for simplicity, that visual card-based Kanban board approach, very intuitive for task tracking. And Zyflow really focuses deeply on the review and approval part, with automated comparison tools and markup features to make feedback super clear and efficient. Choosing the right tool for your team's needs can be a game changer.
Good point about choosing the right tool. And we should also quickly touch on special considerations for in-house creative teams. They also have slightly different headaches than agencies, right? Like unclear request processes coming from all directions, constantly shifting priorities. Research shows something like 73% of in-house teams struggle with this stuff. So for them, things like centralized intake systems are crucial. Standardized ways to prioritize work. Educating stakeholders across the company about the creative process helps too. Managing resource capacity effectively. Having strong brand governance. These are key. And often, for in-house teams, implementing workflow improvements isn't just about process or software. It requires real cultural change. You usually need buy-in from leadership, maybe even formal service level agreements, SLAs, to set expectations with internal clients. It's a bigger organizational shift.
Absolutely. So, wrapping up this section, maybe some quick best practices for production excellence, strategically. Always start with clear goals. Get leadership buy-in. Take it step by step, iteratively. Balance structure with flexibility. Focus on fixing your biggest pain points first. Tactically, standardized naming conventions save so much time. Use brief templates consistently. Visualize your process. Define clear handoffs. Document that tribal knowledge before people leave. And for ongoing improvement, hold regular retrospectives after big projects. Maybe do occasional time studies to see where effort is really going. Get feedback from everyone involved. Look at how competitors operate. And keep reassessing your tech tools. These boring things, they truly enable the brilliant things to happen consistently. Hashtag outro. So let's bring it all together. Effective creative workflow management. It's really not just a nice to have for marketing teams anymore. It's become a competitive necessity. Seriously, in today's world, being able to consistently deliver high quality creative work efficiently, that's a major advantage. By putting structured processes in place, by using the right tools smartly, and by finding that sweet spot between creative freedom and operational discipline, teams can see dramatic improvements, not just in productivity, but more importantly, in the actual quality and impact of their work. The data, the stories, they all point the same way. Mastering your creative workflow leads directly to finishing projects faster, creating better assets, and achieving superior business results. It's about building a powerful, reliable engine for your creativity, letting your vision truly soar.
And that takes us right back to where we started, doesn't it? Back to my story about that perfect tear, ruined by a tiny 5-cent problem. By applying what we've talked about today, understanding that hierarchy of creative needs, really embracing that be less stupid mindset, fostering leadership that builds trust and provides clarity, and building those robust, maybe even automated workflows, you, listening right now, you can create work that genuinely transcends the everyday. It's all about building a solid stage, a reliable platform where your creative magic can actually perform consistently, without getting tripped up by those silly avoidable pitfalls. It's about designing for success, not just hoping for it. So maybe think about your own projects, those moments you're chasing, that deep resonance, that creative spark. How many potential miracles might be getting missed? Is it really a lack of vision? Or could it be something much simpler, a missing piece of tape, a battery you didn't double check, a process you haven't quite mapped out yet?